Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Shambora, the Burger Popper, and we are on a game week, and we're actually at a post game week with week 0. And what a week, especially for Black college football. And when I have Duane from the Yard-HBCU Sports, we're going to talk about Black college football, and we're still talking a little bit of I guess, a off season kind of topic, with most HBCU teams not playing this week. But man, what a week it was. Even though we had 2 games and 3 teams playing, it was a very eventful week and great for the conference's great for the conference's visibility, and just a lot. I mean, got a lot of people buzzing, including myself, and especially the MEAC, with how exciting the race looks. We were talking a little bit before air, but without further ado, I'm joined by a longtime guest of the podcast, Duane from the Yard HBCU Sports. Duane, thanks again for joining. It's been way too long.
Omar, it's always a pleasure to join you. You know, of course, it has been way too long, and I know we do this sporadically throughout the year, but I always have fun when I'm on here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure is mine as well, and I have just as much fun. So just talking about week 0, as mentioned, I guess, what were
But
your
wait a minute,
big
before we move
takeaways?
on, when we first jumped on, I forgot to touch on it. The mustache, is that different?
No, it just depends. Like I cut it bi-weekly. I shave it bi-weekly, but no, I've been on with a mustache. I don't really pay attention because I try to keep it in regs.
Because I know you had mustache before. It just looked a little bit different today. It looked a little bit cleaner today. And I was taken aback. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh my God, a little bit of a different look today. But I won't say anything too much about it today. But nah, the opening popped up right then, just then. But yeah, we go ahead and move on, man. I'm sorry about that.
No,
Let
I
me focus.
appreciate it. I appreciate the kudos. I'll have to make sure I follow the same grooming routine, honestly. I mean, just right down to the centimeter. I just try to get it just around the corners of the mouth to stay within Army Regulation 350-1, and call it a day. So
Wait. There's an actual Army regulation by number?
yeah, so the Army,
Wow.
I think it's Army Regulation 350-1 is, if I'm not mistaken, I get my numbers mixed up. I might be making, I guess, a donkey out of myself, just getting the regs wrong. But 350-1 is uniform standards and everything, like right down to like the wear of the headgear and everything. And even, yes, like facial hair. So I mean, with mustaches and everything. So yeah, so there is a regulation for almost everything.
Wow. I need to be more inquisitory with my son who actually serves. He's actually stationed down in Fort Eustis, down in Newport News. So yeah, I'm gonna have to ask him about that. I'm curious now. That's interesting.
Yeah, if he's an NCO, he knows. He knows he's out there enforcing the standards, making sure the haircuts aren't touching the ear and everything. So he knows if he's an NCO. So he'll know for sure. But yeah, I guess before we get sidetracked even more, I mean, speaking of the Newport News region, I mean, the story of the week, man, after last year's I guess I wouldn't say snooze fest, but blowout of a MEAC SWAC challenge the first time on ABC, we got the complete opposite. We got the game of the week, arguably, probably tied with Montana State, New Mexico, but the game of the week, with Norfolk State against against Florida A&M, former MEAC members, but a game that shocked many early on, that kind of mirrored the Celebration Bowl last year with Florida A&M coming on top. But wow, I mean, that finish, I mean, very, very climactic. And I have my opinions. I mean, I will never condemn a coach for going for the win, but I think what happened, and Coach Odom's explanation kind of has me asking some questions about that team and about the offseason for Norfolk State.
Now, to your point, so if you got a chance to check out my predictions for this past weekend on herosports.com, you will see that both my picks were actually relatively close. I don't want to come on here and beat my chest because I tend to do that often whenever my picks are that close, and they're that close a lot. So you may want to go check out my weekly predictions and previews there on Hero Sports. But I digress. I didn't want to take that as a moment to go ahead and promote myself. But hey, they were relatively close. What I didn't expect, though, I actually had that game 28-24 Florida A&M. I didn't expect Norfolk State to come and punch Florida A&M. I'm sorry, I didn't expect Norfolk State to punch Florida A&M in the mouth the way that they did running the ball. With that said, you could have had some sort of thoughts that would happen. Norfolk brought back the majority of their offensive line. Florida A&M had a lot of transfers on both sides of the ball. The thing is, though, when you're bringing back a bunch of players, the question is, have they developed since last year, or are they still the same guys as the previous season? We saw on Saturday that there is a potential that this offensive line, along with Kevon King, could actually do a lot of damage running the ball this year if they continuously are consistent with their running and try not to stray away from it a little bit, which it appeared to me that they had done late in the fourth quarter, or it just that they ran out of gas. Yeah, I was not expecting them to go up 14-0. That Rattler team was down at least 14-0 three times last year. I'm sorry, two times last year, down 14-0 at some point in their season. Texas Southern and to Howard again in the Celebration Bowl. But I didn't know whether or not they would be capable of coming back because we hadn't seen anything from this iteration of the Rattlers, along with new head coach James Cozy. But that Richardson kid threw for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was highly impressive. And then when the Rattlers went on that, what was that? A 24-3 run after being down 14. I'm sorry, 23-10 run after being down 14-0. They most definitely impressed after the second quarter. So, yeah, to your point, I don't know if it's a situation where this team still doesn't know how to finish. I don't know if it's the play calling or if it's the play, but this is something that is completely repetitive that they did last year. The stat line that they kept showing on Saturday with the amount of games that they lost by 7 points or less, and it reared its ugly head again this past weekend. But you pointed out the 2-point conversion. I don't like blaming losses on just one play alone, but I didn't like that play call. A quarterback sneak in a situation where you had Kevon King, who ran as well as he did, was averaging about 3 yards a carry, and you're 1.5 yards out. Just run the running back.
I gotta agree. The play call wasn't the best. I think they tried to get too cute because I think it was like more like a read option RPO type, but it's like, why not just run it down their throats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm excited, honestly. Like you mentioned, Daniel Richardson. I'm excited because he is like probably the most experienced quarterback in the league. Like this is his college swan song. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find someone with a more diverse collegiate career than Richardson playing at Central Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I made the joke, I think, on Twitter that he's probably the only guy ever to start a Sun Bowl and a MEAC SWAC challenge at quarterback. He probably is the only guy ever.
Oh, he
So
most definitely is. Yeah.
so just he's diverse. He's got a diverse experience, and I think he added some like a run game, like the run game to his arsenal. That's something that I've noticed. Like he's more of a pocket passer despite his short stature. So I'm excited to see how he does in the SWAC this year. I think what you mentioned about the close losses for Norfolk State. I think things are only going to get better as this team gets more and more experience or builds on that experience. And I think especially with the familiarity of their MEAC opponents, I think that they'll be able to flip a lot of those close losses last year. When it comes to Florida A&M, like that again is a team that returned a good amount of talent, especially on defense. But I mean, even then, like that, I guess that lack of familiarity, kind of, I think it could have played a role in a Norfolk State not being able to close the deal, and I guess not. I'm not saying them not making adjustments, Florida and being able to make adjustments that Norfolk State didn't really see coming, but overall, an instant classic. The other game that followed it, which I think it was just a great 6 hours, 6 or so hours for the conference, where you hop from one game on ABC almost right into you take an hour nap actually right into Hawaii hosting Delaware State. And like I said, I'm gonna beat my chest. I said on Twitter, said on the podcast, take Delaware plus 40. I'm not much of a gambling advocate, but I mean, that's an improved team, Marquee Adams and everything. And the weather was a factor too. With the tropical storm too, that was icing on the cake, right? A wet football. Braden Shager was affected by the wet football. You could see, I think there was a stretch where he was like 5 for 16, I think, in the first half. But Delaware State made a great account for themselves, better than they have in past FBS games. Like, and of course, like last year, me being an Army fan, that's the
Mm-hmm.
first game where the shotgun offense really clicked. I think Bryson Daly threw for 3 touchdowns, ran for two in a 57-0 game, but that wasn't the case here against Hawaii, against an offense that is obviously more hardwired to score points. Excuse me, more hardwired to score points than Army's shotgun offense last year. But I mean, I'm excited, as we talked before, about the parity in the MEAC, where honestly, I feel like we'll have a different champion once again in the Celebration Bowl. And it's just great to see, especially schools that have not played in the Celebration Bowl, like a Norfolk State, like a Morgan State, like a Delaware State. It's huge for these schools, especially for Delaware State and Morgan State. Even, I mean, I guess more so Delaware State since we're on the topic, getting them that shine, getting them that exposure that puts them in the MEAC SWAC challenge, that makes ABC and ESPN respect, or ESPN events respect them and put them in that classic. But I want to know your thoughts on Delaware State and whether they made a statement for the rest of the MEAC.
Well, I'm right there with you. Again, if you go back to my predictions, I actually picked that that game would be 31-14 Hawaii. I thought that them being, what was it? At one point in time, it was 43. They were 43 and a half point dogs, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kicking myself Sunday, thinking to myself, yeah, I should have put some scratch in that game. There's no way to, I didn't think I didn't think Hawaii was that much better than Delaware State, but I was impressed with the fact that that game was tied at 14 at the half. That was something that I was impressed by, especially with the fact that they had that game, that they were playing it basically at midnight on Eastern Standard Time, even though they had been in Hawaii since what, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, depending upon whenever they got there after missing that first flight that they were supposed to take. And I don't even want to get into that conversation because that's still crazy talk to me. Um, but I'm intrigued to see exactly how um this team, that this Hornets team, learns from what they're going to do during the out of conference schedule and how that parlays into their conference schedule. And then to your point with Norfolk State, again, they look wonderful against Florida A&M. I'm wondering, because two of those close games that they had last year were against Howard and against Morgan State, two teams outside of North Carolina Central, who people are eyeing whether or not they're going to win the conference championship this year. That Howard game they do have at Norfolk, but they will have to go back to Baltimore to face the Bears. So I'm wondering, how does that Norfolk State team late in the season, because I think that game is like late October, early November, how they're going to look going up to Baltimore, which is going to be a little bit chilly and be more around that time of year, and whether or not they've learned truthfully from this matchup. We won't really know this weekend what Norfolk State, what type of adjustments they'll have made, because they play East Carolina this coming week, an FBS opponent that I think that they'll have struggles with. But it'll be intriguing to see if they look to try to run the ball consistently against them too. But I know that their offensive coordinator, John Phillips, is one who looks for explosive plays, and it'll be intriguing to see how he calls that game against the Pirates.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think something about Norfolk State that fascinates me is whatever the situation is with Otto Kuhns, if it's the fact that he is suspended, like I've heard reports say, and he comes right back. I mean, they have depth at quarterback, and Kuhns coming back makes it a more balanced attack, which works in their favor against Morgan State, really, because Morgan State will that game will be a rock fight. It will be low scoring and everything. But with Otto Kuhns, I think it really gives them the advantage in that one. And I know Big Money Marklin Banks is gonna hate me for saying that, But that's just that's just my thoughts. It's like I see a quarterback X factor. Even though Jalen Carter was great at moments against Norfolk State, like I think only had 4 passing attempts in the first half though. Like
Mm-hmm.
I like made I tweeted out. I said like I don't get why Florida A&M doesn't put 8 in the box and make Jalen Carter beat them. And then right after I said that, he had that long completion to kick off the third quarter to prove me wrong. But that's just something for me that I mean, looking at that game in October, if Otto Kuhns is takes back the starting job and they have a pass game to go with that great run game, I think that they'll have the advantage from Morgan State. But it will be a very physical game, and I mean, maybe the weather plays a factor out there at Hughes, but maybe the cold weather plays a factor, like you say. So
Before we move on, it seems as though that earlier today, during the weekly press conference, that Coach Odoms was extremely high on Daniels and his ability to throw the rock. So I don't know if we'll see what happens over the next 3 weeks. How Daniels looks against the upcoming competition, but yeah, with Coons being out because of the academic situation that he's dealing with the NCAA, yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether or not this will be Daniels's starting job to lose or not.
geez, I just realized I said Jalen Carter. I'm thinking of Jawan Carter. I'm stuck in 2021. So I realized I said Jalen Carter. Yeah, Jalen Daniels. Yeah, great game for sure. Had a very solid game, and I'm excited for what he has to do. Going on, I guess leaving the MEAC and going to a former MEAC school. Talking about North Carolina A&T, something that dropped this summer. North Carolina A&T has a local television deal, and I always love when you can give games back to the local fans, because I know I'm not the first person to bring up Flow Sports in a negative light, even though I'm not going to bring it up in a negative light. I'm just going to say that plenty of people have put Flow Sports in a negative light, and it may or may not have led to a couple exits from the conference, including one school leaving the CAA for the Patriot League. I guess things might be that bad, which I'm not going to say anything bad about Flow Sports. But I want to know your thoughts, of course, with you being an A&T alum, your thoughts on this local TV deal, and I guess where it kind of puts them in terms of exposure with the rest of the CAA. I guess, and yeah, because I know the CAA has a lot of local television deals, and that's a conference that's accessible to a lot of local markets, but nationally, it's not as accessible.
Yeah. So I checked out the deal. They said that it goes as far north, or in this case, northwest, as Patrick County. And how far south is that again? Let me look at that again real quick. Um, Montgomery County, and also says as far west as Wilkes County, and all the way as far east as Alamance in the state of North Carolina. So you're getting a lot of coverage within the state of North Carolina, and it even goes up into southwestern Virginia as well. So you get that range, that those fans won't have to make that investment into Flow Sports. Um, from a discussion I've had with the SID over at A&T, there's supposed to be some more information coming out about this deal. So they're going to be doing a podcast in the near future to announce exactly what that is. Brian wouldn't share it with me exactly, but he just said to be on the lookout for the podcast because they will be talking a little bit more about the new deal that they have with Sinclair. And they seem to be extremely excited about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to be on the lookout for the podcast, get that link from you because that's gonna be a workday listen for me for sure. And I think for so looking at this deal, it definitely looking at I guess just at a purely CAA outlook with just their conference mates. I look at that region. Elon has a deal with has a local TV deal with the local My TV network, so they're covered. I think this puts them at an advantage of Campbell because Campbell doesn't have such a deal within the state, so it works there. Allows them to compete, excuse me, for exposure with those local recruits, saying that you're on pretty much a TV, a channel that everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'll have to check if it's just. I'm pretty sure it's just home games, but all your home games at the very least will be on a channel that everyone has. Also looking as well, which I'm sure ESPN will or. Let's see, if it's an Aggie home game, the Aggie Eagle Classic will become even more of an institution in North Carolina under this deal, being on local TV, which is just great for the rivalry. But I also think too, like this kind of works in response. So, I mean, and I'm not saying that this was the motivation for doing this, but it kind of counteracts, I guess, everyone talking about the exposure that the MEAC gets, of course, those Thursday night games, but still most games for the MEAC are behind the ESPN Plus / ESPN3 paywall. So if you're an NCAA&T fan, I mean, your games are more accessible than North Carolina Central, the rest of your former MEAC conference mates, at least your home games. I think, because I don't think any MEAC school has a similar deal. And with ESPN, most of their conference games are behind that ESPN Plus / ESPN3 paywall.
They are, and I had to do a quick check to see exactly where this map of these counties lie within the region. It's not as wide of a net as I anticipated. These are all counties that are just outside of the Piedmont Triad area. So they're just outside of Winston in terms of going west in the state, and it's just a county or two east from Guilford County, and of course, got the county, Patrick County, in Virginia is just north of the state line, and my guess is that southernmost point is just outside of the Piedmont area as well. So it's not taking up the whole state, but it does go extend past Elon. So you do have that, and I believe it covers where Campbell is as well. So it covers those areas, but it's not a super wide net as I was anticipating it being. So it's still kind of localized, but it's still localized for that Greensboro area and the surrounding the neighboring counties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that deal as well, whenever there's deals like this, there's a potential for I'm gonna sound, like I'm from a different age, but the potential for tape delay on, especially I know I think SNY puts a lot of games on tape delay. I know Columbia puts games later in the day on SNY on tape delay and everything, where it's just like, yes, it's a RSN, right? But that's more, I guess that's your game being plastered multiple times as programming. So if you miss it, I mean, you're not going to find it pirated on YouTube, right? I mean, same kind of idea here, where it's like I think North Carolina A&T, especially on those networks that, which I'll have to check if I'm not sure if the network. I know it's Sinclair owned, but I don't think it's like a Fox network or a CW where there's actual like I guess live programming. I
Mm-hmm.
guess later that Saturday, like Saturday or Sunday afternoon, NCA&T can fill the airwaves. A rerun of the game can fill the airwaves and everything, and just bring more exposure. Where we have multiple opportunities to see the game. I know. I guess drawing from my IFL fandom / background, the Massachusetts Pirates do this a lot. Where I mean, the games are on YouTube, but for a lot of people that aren't cord cutters, a lot of old fashioned people that are tied to the RSN, if you want to see the game, it's gonna be on Nesson, multiple times. So I think that is another great possibility for NCA&T and for their brand.
I completely agree with you. The same happens here in this region. Um, Before it was Monumental Sports and it was bought by Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Wizards and the Caps. Masson used to do the same thing with a lot of the local college sports, not just limited to football, but a lot of the mid majors, be it football, basketball, or whatever, would run on tape delay later on in the evening or sometimes overnight, and it would give you an opportunity to watch those games on reruns as well, or maybe even the next day. So my guess is that it's a possibility that Sinclair would do the exact same thing, where it's not only just airing live, but you might be able to catch a replay, say later on Saturday night or sometime during Sunday if they don't have any other programming going on.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, later in the night, there's nights where you just wake up in the middle of the night and you just leave the TV on the Sinclair station and oh, NCNT is playing. I mean,
Yeah.
so definitely a great opportunity for the program for sure. And I'm excited to see how it benefits the program. Staying in North Carolina and staying with the team that wears blue and gold, this year's Red Tails Classic will have a different look as Fort Valley State will not play in the Red Tails Classic for the first time in the 4-year history of the game, replacing them is Johnson C. Smith, a team that is on the rise. You know, they're fresh off a bowl game appearance in the Florida Beach Bowl, and I guess they parlayed that momentum enough to get a spot on the Red Tails Classic. It's on a very light slate on a Sunday, on a Sunday night. This is honestly, I would say, in terms of exposure, it probably rivals the. I guess the Celebration Bowl always gets good reviews, or good ratings, but honestly rivals like the Bayou Classic in terms of exposure and opportunity to really share your brand with the rest of the country. But Johnson C. Smith will play in that game. A significant chance for them to share their expose their brand to most of the country, but they are considerably farther away from the historic Crampton Bowl than Fort Valley State is. So I want to know your thoughts, Duane, on their inclusion in this game and whether this will hurt the Classic's attendance.
Good question. Because like you said, traditionally it's an all SEAC matchup. Um, I'm wondering if because it'll be Johnson C and Tuskegee, correct?
Yes, Tuskegee is
Yeah.
staying in the game. Yep.
So it's a possibility that Tuskegee fans just want to see Tuskegee football and they want to come out and watch their fans. So I don't know whether or not that'll hurt that game, especially with that game being played in Alabama. But I'm more intrigued to see whether or not the Johnson C. Smith fan base will be interested in going to the Shed or not. I will admit, going down to the Shed is one of my HBCU is on my HBCU bucket list of things to do. Because I'm an old man. I shouldn't be in the Shed, but I just want to witness it in person to see what that vibe is like. I just love seeing collegiate energy, and that's just one of those things that I want to witness in person to see what that's like. And I'm wondering whether or not there are any Golden Bull fans that'll be interested to take that trip or not. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see if that's a situation where JCSU fans will go, or if it's just going to be a thing where Tuskegee just takes over another home game for them.
Yeah, I will say, and then by the Shed, I mean, shoot, I'm not familiar with not as familiar with the SEAC. Gonna get attacked for this, but the Shed, I'm assuming that's Tuskegee's home stadium.
Yes, well, it's a
Okay.
section within the stadium where
Oh,
the students sit, and that thing rocks. It reminds me, being an old man here, of the olden days of RFK Stadium here in DC with the Washington football team, and how they used to make the stadium shake. They would make the sheds shake as well. But again, man of my age shouldn't be in there in that group. I should just be watching from afar, just like every other alumni, just watching the kids have fun. But that is something that I do want to at least get an opportunity to witness once in my lifetime.
yeah, I just want to clarify that the game will be at the Crampton Bowl this year,
Oh,
or
that's
it
right. So
has
it's
been.
not
Yeah,
in.
so yeah,
I forgot about that. I'm sorry. That's on me. That's on
that's
me.
all good. It's all
So
good.
so Crampton, how far of a drive is it from Tuskegee up to Crampton?
Let's see, Tuskegee's I want to say they're like Tuskegee's Montgomery-ish, so I guess the Montgomery region. So I'd say the Crampton Bowl, not that far from Tuskegee, I believe. From JCSU, I think it's at least like a 7 hour drive. I could be wrong on that one, but it's a considerable distance.
No, Crampton's in Montgomery.
Okay, yeah. Crampton Bowl's in Montgomery, so yeah, so yeah, I think like maybe an hour at most from Tuskegee compared to JCSU.
40
I'm gonna
minutes.
stick 20 minutes. Okay, so that's it.
It's about 40 minutes away. So yeah, it just seems like it's going to be a situation where a lot of the Tuskegee fans go out and check this game out. But I'm intrigued to see exactly how many are going to be willing to watch a CIAA matchup of a team that for Johnson C that people expect to be a lot more competitive than they have been in past seasons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, they have the momentum from the Florida Beach Bowl appearance last year. I think something for me when I look at this game and it being, I mean, such a big stage, I kind of wonder a couple of things. First, with the attendance, whether I guess the classic goes back to a Fort Valley State versus Toledo, or sorry, Fort Valley State versus Tuskegee. Long worked. I don't know what I don't know why I'm thinking about the MAC right now, but Fort Valley State versus Tuskegee format or SEAC versus SEAC format because I don't see why they wouldn't invite Miles to the game, a nearby Alabama school, whether they go with a rotating opponent format against Tuskegee. Because I think another classic, I mean, coincidentally, on the same day, the Orange Blossom Classic will also be entering a new era in terms of its format. So I think those two classics will be looking at whether they want to keep the format or I guess how they want to go forward with their philosophy. The second thing that I'm thinking is I wonder if this is a pilot to moving the Red Tails Classic to week 0 because I know a while back, the SEAC and the CIAA had tried to lobby with the NCAA for a week 0 game. So this could be the pilot, and I know this was scheduled way before the NCAA made their decision, but I can see that being a direction that they go, like the MEAC SWAC Challenge, where you have the Red Tails Classic, say at noon, and some gaps in between. Well, actually, no, it can't even work out because the FCS kickoff. But I'm wondering though if that would be a pilot for such an event where maybe you have the Red Tails Classic on the Sunday after the FCS kickoff. So you have two games in Montgomery in one weekend, a Sunday game in August, much like the old kickoff classic. So those are two things that I'm thinking with this game and this format in particular.
I mean, it sounds like a wonderful idea. I almost forgot about the fact that the SEAC and the CIAA wanted to do a week 0 contest. And if they were to go ahead and promote it the same way that the MEAC and the SWAC do their annual challenge, that most definitely might end up becoming a thing where it could be a rotating situation where you go ahead and not just have Tuskegee in it, but have other teams from the SEAC face off against teams from the CIAA. So you end up having a situation, the same thing, the same way that you have in FCS HBCU football, where your season opens up and closes with the two conferences from on that level or in that division play each other at the beginning and at the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I think of too. Like you mentioned the beginning and the end book ending. I think of that too, where the Black College football season starts with the MEAC SWAC Challenge and it ends with the Celebration Bowl, which it's just amazing. Well, like, especially if we have a storyline where Norfolk State and Florida A&M play each other again as a sequel. Even though I'm not much of a fan of bowl, I guess of bowl rematches, but when it's a game that's for all the marbles and not a bowl game that is just for pride, I'm all for it. When there's a championship at stake, I'm all for a rematch. Um, so I mean, I think I'm excited to see whether the commissioners of both conferences come up with something just based off this format with the Red Tails Classic.
Yeah, it'll be intriguing to see if that happens. But to your point, you got to remember, Omar, we've never seen a situation yet in the Celebration Bowl era where someone has opened and closed their season in Atlanta. It's a possibility we may get it from Florida A&M this year. They will have a tough time against potentially Alabama State, who a lot of people have picked to win not only the East but the SWAC as a whole. But we got to see exactly how they end up looking this upcoming season as well.
Man, that makes me think that you mentioned that. I wonder if with Alabama State having so much to play, if the say they make the SWAC championship, does the Turkey Day Classic become sort of a de facto game where you rest your starters to prepare for the SWAC? I would hate to see a rivalry like that be reduced to such a status, but that definitely is a storyline to watch. I love the Turkey Day Classic. I absolutely love the Turkey Day Classic, but man, I would be interested to see how Coach Robinson plays that scenario where, you are playing against a sub D1. I mean, Tuskegee, it's a great Tuskegee, Alabama State's a great rivalry, but Tuskegee is a sub D1 at the end of the day. And the game is just, it's there for pride. So I know I'm probably just opened up a whole, whole I guess it's like, a bunch of possibilities and everything.
Omar,
But
look at my face. When I tell you that rivalry, Bama State Tuskegee, when I first started covering HBCU sports, um, of course, extremely familiar with stuff that happened on the East Coast because I'm a DC guy, went to school in North Carolina. So MEAC, CIAA rivalries, I got that. But with social media and seeing how Tuskegee, Alabama State. Oh my God! Now that you even say that, I didn't even think about that. What that situation would look like if it was Bama State and they won the East and they're going into Thanksgiving and they play against Tuskegee. What do you do? Do you go ahead and you sit your? I don't even. God, Omar, you started something. I don't. I haven't heard anyone say this yet, and it's a possibility someone has already brought this up. So, but even still, it's going to be shocking to me. It's already shocking to me. Oh. You talk about Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Alabama State and Tuskegee's right here, literally. And some of the jabs that I've seen Tuskegee throw on social media, not just at Alabama State, but at some of their SEAC contemporaries and the like, they take their rivalry seriously. And God, you bring up that, oh my God. Because that's can you imagine if Alabama State is in that situation? They go on to win the SWAC and they go on to win the Celebration Bowl, but yet they sit their players for the Turkey Day Classic and Tuskegee wins that game.
I
They
think,
are,
yeah,
they're not going to let them hit the end of it. They're not. I
yeah.
doubt that happens. Just know that is most definitely stored in my mind. If that situation happens, if I don't get a chance to ask Coach Robinson, someone will, and I want to see what his answer is going to be. Especially with him being an ASU alum, he knows how serious that rivalry is. But what's more important? Winning the SWAC championship, probably. I don't know. You blow my mind. You blow my mind, Omar. You find a way at least once a year to do that. I don't know how, but yeah, this one was even worse. I don't even know how. I'm not handling this well at all. I don't think you understand this right now. I don't think you know.
I think if that happens, I feel like we'll see the Labor Day Classic return, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Because because I mean, maybe in a few years, maybe not right away, but that'll be fresh on Bama State fans' minds. Like I guess a scenario like I guess our minds wouldn't be blown as much if it was like that brief period of time and like I don't know if it was like the 2010s when it was Stillman in the Turkey Day Classic and it's like, okay,
Uh-huh.
this is just Alabama State playing on Thanksgiving, carrying on the tradition. Like
Yeah.
Stillman, rest in peace that program. I mean, it's not the Turkey Day Classic. It's like a vegan Turkey Day Classic, like a vegan turkey. No disrespect to the vegans I know out there, especially Mike, college football campus store. He's a vegan, but that's what it feels like. But man, like yeah, this scenario, I don't really want it to play out to be honest with you, because it's kind of like the Army Navy scenario that everyone talks about with the American Conference, which I would hate it if we played Navy in the American Conference game. Like everyone's like, oh, it's so great, but it's like, what does that do for the following week? Where
Mm-hmm.
both teams are playing in a game that I guess they played each other already. So what is this Army Navy game? It's just what happened last week in NFL Stadium.
I don't think you want the fact that I just love chaos. And that would most definitely be a big example of chaos. I'm thinking of other examples of how that would be a scenario. God, another way that would be a thing is if God, like Orange Blossom, not Orange Blossom, but the Florida Classic. If Florida A&M already has, well, no, because that was like that last year. No, that's what's a little bit different. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, you messed me up, Omar. I don't even know. God, I don't even know what to say. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope it doesn't get to that point. I don't really know how else we can transition. I guess from that, I guess staying in the SEAC for our last topic. There's a new classic this year. Speaking of classics, Rochester, New York has thrown its hat into the classic ring with the Frederick Douglass HBCU Classic out here in Rochester, or out in Rochester, New York. And I love HBCU classics. I'm not opposed to any city having one. It's just the matchup seems a bit off. You got Central State, which is great. They don't have, any classics really. Their fans don't really have much of opportunity for that classic experience, the pomp and circumstance of it. But they're playing against Albany State, which of course you don't need to have a geography degree to know that Albany, Georgia is nowhere close to Rochester, New York. And even then, the Cleveland area that Central State is from, it's not that close to Rochester either. So I want to know your thoughts on the classic itself and the team selection, because I know we were both scratching our head before we went on air.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't necessarily mind when cities decide that they want to do an HBCU classic. My thing is I want the best planning and organization of this game as possible so that it can be as effortless, not only for the fans to make their way to this game, but for the teams and potential bands to come and participate. Now you got a situation where the closest team in Central State, the fans will have to drive over six hours to get to Rochester, New York. And then, of course, you would have to have, of course, Albany State fans at the fly-in. And then with Rochester not necessarily being a marquee city, shout out to Yard-HBCU Talk on social media. I see that she responded to one of your posts on X about the game in Rochester. It's like, basically paraphrasing her, she basically said that Rochester was not a marquee city. And then we start thinking about the closest marquee city to Rochester. Buffalo's an hour away. Toronto's 3 hours away. New York City's 5. I mean, outside of the rap group Griselda and Rick James and the Buffalo Bills, I don't know why you're going to the city of Buffalo. But and I don't know if anyone's intrigued to go to the city of Buffalo either. So, yeah, my hope is that, the people of Rochester, the people of Buffalo, are intrigued enough to want to come see these two programs play, and maybe even enticed by because there's going to be a fifth quarter, so the bands are showing up as well. So it's a possibility that they may even come out for that. The stadium itself holds about 13,000, and when you start talking about D2 classics, when you start talking about the high end in terms of attendance, primarily because of the size of the stadiums that they're in, you're talking about 16, 17, 18,000. So on a good day, you could probably get about 10,000 in that stadium, which would be pretty nice. What you don't want to see is anything sub 3. For those two teams to come out, have to come that far out, play, and unfortunately, people don't come out to check those teams out. But again, I'm intrigued to see exactly who comes out to see this game, and almost curious enough why. If it's not the fans that do it, I'm just hoping that the communities in the neighboring cities do come out to check this out, though, so they get a little taste of HBCU football.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, and I mean, I always learn something from you when you bring up stuff like Griselda, as well as Rick James. I did not know Rick James was a Buffalo native.
Oh yeah,
I
oh
didn't know
yeah.
that. Did not know
Uh,
that. I know.
yeah, if you ever get a chance, it's a series that was on Cinemax called Tales from the Tour Bus. It was done by Mike Judge, the creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. So the entire series is animated, and it's basically stories about various famous musicians. Season 1 is about country music. Season 2 is about funk music. So they're both actually great seasons and a great watch if you hadn't had the opportunity to see it. But yeah, they most definitely do an episode on Rick James, and of course, there's also the documentary that was on Showtime called Bitchin' about Rick James as well. So, being a funk fan myself, I had to check him out and learn as much as I can about Rick James. And yeah, he's most definitely from the city of Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely gonna check it out now for sure. But yeah, with that being said, so for my team selection, like for I guess my thoughts on team selection, like you said, it's gonna be tough to travel. It's not a travel hub. I'm just gonna leave it at that to not anger another group of people. I know I've angered Morgan or Morgan State fans, maybe Tuskegee,
Wait a
Alabama
minute, why
State
did you anger
fans.
Morgan State fans?
Oh, because I said Norfolk State because I said Norfolk State had the advantage on. So I know. I mean,
Oh,
we both know Big Money Banks is gonna get on me about that if he gets a hold of this podcast. Which I might drop that clip just to get the engagement up. I'd hate to be that guy, but but yeah, like Rochester's not a travel hub really, so it's gonna be tough. I mean, for Albany State fans to fly in, and even Central State fans that want to spare themselves the time and fatigue of a 6 hour drive to get there. I say, like, honestly, in terms of closeness, like I don't see why you wouldn't want to get a, Lincoln. I, I know Lincoln's got a
yeah.
small fan base, but for them to be in a neutral site classic, I could imagine their fans treating it like it's the Bayou Classic or or the Celebration Bowl, the Florida Beach Bowl. Like, I can see it. I have hope and I have optimism that they would love a moment like that. So I mean, you have Lincoln right there, honestly. And then but with the whole classic thing, I kind of wonder. Of course, it's more beneficial to make it an all CIAA affair if it's a game in Rochester. But I mean, if you want the whole non-conference flavor, I guess that's just a bullet you're gonna have to bite in terms of having a team have to travel far from the SEAC if it's not Central State or maybe even Kentucky State. But even then, with the Circle City Classic, I think it was like a 5 or 6 year stretch where the two most obvious teams to play in it from a geography perspective, Kentucky State and Central State, kept playing in the
Mm-hmm.
game, and it kind of got tiresome. It got old. So I kind of wonder if that there's that, I guess, that experience of wearing teams out, of having the tradition become old, is in the thoughts of the Rochester Classic. But I think the stadium size, I do think it's a bit big for Division II, but I wonder if they factored in the bands of both teams really, because I heard someone say from Howard Twitter that they don't know how they're gonna fit Tennessee State's band when they play at Green Stadium this year. Like, I heard that's a legitimate concern. So I guess the bigger the better when it comes to these classics, no matter at what level.
Um, so I've seen something to that effect before, as it pertains to what's going to happen with Tennessee State in Green Stadium. And the closest thing that I can think of in that instance, of course, is the Blue and Gold Marching Machine of North Carolina A&T. Now, I don't know if at that time, someone's going to most definitely correct me on this, if A&T's band at the time was as large as Tennessee State's band is now, or even if the last time I saw um, the BGMM in Green, um, if they even brought their entire band with them. But they ended up taking up a nice portion of the stadium, and but for the sake of Howard, though, that game I went to was not a homecoming game, even though there was a year, I believe it was 2016, that A&T did come to Green, and I believe they brought their band with them then. And I know it's tough to do that during homecoming. I'm going to actually see if I can make my way there for that game to see how Tennessee State does it with their band there in that stadium and how they fit them all in there, along with, of course, all of the Howard faithful wanting to be there for homecoming, and then the possibility of the vice president showing up as well. And I know how much of a mess that's going to end up causing there at Green Stadium too. So yeah, it's going to be real intriguing to see exactly how they they get that band in the green too. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I saw someone bring it up. One of the couple Howard people that I follow, or Howard fans that I follow, always squabbling with big money banks. But yeah, I saw that. That's a legitimate question. So maybe the bigger the better is good for the Rochester Classic and everything. But yeah, I'm interested to see where this how this is, especially for attendance. I'm also wondering too, like we talked before we went on air about Albany State, whether they're trying to build a Northeast following because last year they played Morehouse in the HBCU NY Classic, which was great to see. I mean, not I guess a school playing, not Howard playing Morehouse at MetLife Stadium, but I can't imagine that it was a trip that I guess Albany State fans would want to make on multiple occasions. Same thing with Rochester. I mean, Rochester's the stadium that they're playing in is not MetLife Stadium. I mean, it's not an NFL stadium, obviously. So
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how many fans they're trying to attract or trying to attract in the Northeast region, or whether it's more of a thing for recruitment in terms of enrollment for the school at large, where there is clearly no HBCU option in upstate New York. So you want to corner that base of the population to go to Albany State. So I kind of wonder if that's some of the strategy. I mean, because I'm sure the athletic directors and the administration of Albany State is thinking in that vein.
Most definitely are. The thing though that was beneficial to the NYC Classic was the fact that they were playing against Morehouse, and of course, Spellhouse has a huge alumni base there in the New York area that most definitely wants to get an opportunity to see their team or at least their band or at least get up with other alums in that region in one spot if they're not making it down to Morehouse's homecoming. So that's just a wonderful opportunity for them to do that. Something that oddly enough they really didn't take too much of an advantage. They didn't take as much of an advantage of here in DC. But that's where I'm intrigued to see. Um, I know they won't be able to repeat 18,000 in Rochester, not only because the stadium won't hold it, but again, that travel. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see exactly how that pans out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the one final note I'll put on that is I'm a huge ballpark football fan. Their ballpark, the Rochester Red Wings ballpark, Frontier Field has hosted football before. So maybe next year we'll see that. And yeah, I think that's the article I'll save for the week of the game, suggesting that they play the game at Frontier Field because who doesn't love a good ballpark football game? They killed my EBW Classic. They massacred my boy out in Worcester with Holy Cross almost for no reason. They had a good thing going, but I mean, so there's less ballpark football. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it's at Frontier Field in the future.
Well, I'm going to keep this question real condensed. I know we've had the conversation before about you loving ballpark football, and you most definitely love to talk about small ballpark football. How do you feel about big ballpark football when you have safe not Safeco, Petco? They have the bowl game there. They also have the bowl games in Fenway and the Yankee Stadium. How do you feel about those large baseball stadiums having ball games there too?
I love it, honestly, especially if it's a part. I mean, we're past the cookie cutter age, for sure. But I think each ballpark has its character now. We're at that point, except for like the indoor ones, which even then they do have their own character and dimensions. But I think it's great, honestly, whenever you get two teams to play in those venues, even if they're empty. I know UMass played a game a few years back. They didn't have much attendance, but I think any time that there's a game at Fenway, I guess later or at all during the year they'll keep the football configuration and play high school games there, where of course
Hmm.
they're not going to draw huge crowds, but still the experience of playing in a ballpark, still the quirkiness, and I mean that's there. Which also too, you mentioned Petco Park. I forgot they moved the Holiday Bowl to the campus, or not the campus of San Diego State, but to San Diego State's new stadium. So we're
Oh,
back.
really?
They did, yes.
Hmm.
I'm not sure why, but I'm glad I went when it was at Petco. I mean, saw the window and went.
Yeah, because my sister asked me about that actually just yesterday, being that she lives not too far away from San Diego. We talked about whether or not we want to go to the game this year or not. Probably will, but now that it's not gonna be in Petco. I'm wondering the feel of this game. You know, I was actually in downtown San Diego the year that North Carolina played against Oregon, So we weren't too far away from the stadium. We could actually see the lights from the stadium from the bar where we were in downtown San Diego. So I'm intrigued to see exactly what the feel of the game being in San Diego State Stadium would be as opposed to what it was like in Petco.
I will say that some of the bigger ballparks just have more of that football history and pedigree that just adds to it. Of course, being Yankee Stadium, even though it's a new
Mhm.
one, and Fenway Park, just with how old it is. Of course, Wrigley too. Wrigley Field with the Bears playing there and everything. I mean, Petco Park didn't really have that history, but it still was great. Just seeing a drive go, I guess a drive happen going towards like that old like metalworks building that's now a rooftop bar in the ballpark. So. I mean, any ballpark really. I mean, I'm a ballpark savant. Yeah, it's like ballpark football savant, or connoisseur. I mean, right down to the level like where I've been looking at high schools that play at old like municipal ballparks. It's a fun rabbit hole that distracts me at work.
Bet. I bet.
But I think we reached all of our topics and we've said enough and made enough fan bases mad at this point. Duane, before we head off, I'll give you time to plug where you're at this season and especially those predictions. I mean, I sense a great year for the predictions.
Well, welcome to my world, Omar, of making people mad every year. It's not something that I strive to do. It just happens to be something that I stumble upon. But yeah, as always, especially during the football season, you can catch my weekly previews and predictions at herosports.com. You can catch me on social media at the Yard-HBCU. And check me out, especially follow me on X and potentially Insta. Well, yeah, I'm gonna do it on Instagram as well, where I'm going to announce where I'm going to be, where I'm going to show up live this year throughout the football season. It won't be a ton of places, but it'll be a couple of places where I'll go ahead and I'll pop my head up to say what's up to the fans, and of course check out the football this football season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where you pop up. And yeah, like game reveal, like I guess yeah, game schedule reveals are always fun. I know neither of us are Mike from CFP Campus Tour, right? But even then, it's still fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, that's not getting too crazy. I won't be going too far out of the Mid Atlantic this season, unfortunately. Hopefully that'll be a thing for 2025, where I start to travel a little bit further west and start popping up there. But yeah, this year it'll be spots along the East Coast. So Baltimore, Dover, Washington D.C. most definitely, Greensboro, North Carolina, Richmond, Norfolk. Be on the lookout. It's a possibility I may pop up in your city.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the reveal, and I hope the fans connect with you. And you said going out west. Can we say right now, 2030 Howard San Jose State? You'll be there talking about going out west. I'm kidding.
Ooh. You know what? It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I'm gonna go ahead and and see when that game falls and see whether or not I can make that out there for that one or not. But yeah, I'll go ahead and try to pencil that one in. Yeah.
You gotta love FE schedules, planning game trips all the way. I mean, I know Army has a couple of games scheduled in 2038 with the conference move that teams did not want to let go of the Army home and home series, which is great that teams want to play Army. But we had to push it to 2038, where I think the funny thing about scheduling is I had tweeted this about the Middle Tennessee State game for Army being pushed, or the return trip to Murfreesboro being pushed to 2031.
Uh-huh.
And 2020, when the first game was played, I was a senior at the academy. And now, when the returning game is played, I'll be a 32-year-old man, where it's just like two different points in life, where I have a connection to this series. College football scheduling is insane.
Very much so. Very much so. I just remember when North Dakota State and North Carolina A&T being scheduled was a thing, and that conversation of that game potentially happening, and then we getting to 2020, and unfortunately COVID happening, and my plans of I actually had travel plans to go see them play that year, but yeah, as a fan, I couldn't make myself go to Fargo to watch them in 2022. That A&T team was most definitely a shell of itself, and I know how I get. at an A&T game when I'm in the press box and they're getting beaten. Yeah, I'm not a fun dude. I'm not a fun dude. And I know I'm breaking press protocol in a lot of instances. And I have to remove myself from the room. So, yeah, I did not want to be there in 2022, not to see that in person. Even though people said I missed out on the Fargo Dome, I'm just going to have to make a personal trip up there for a game that does not involve A&T and check it out on my leisure. But, yeah, I couldn't do it as a fan. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't blame you, honestly. I mean, I don't know if I could cover. I guess maybe in an Army American Conference game, I could probably cover. But Army Notre Dame this year, yeah, I would. Yeah, I would just. Yeah, it's not it would not be good.
I'm not fun. I'm not fun in those instances at all. Not at all. No.
But thank you again, Duane, for joining. I know we rescheduled a couple times, but I'm glad we were able to finally connect the dots before week one started. And just stay tuned. This won't be the last time Duane will be on the podcast. And until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul on the Burger Popper.